My parents will divorce if I don't break up with my girlfriend. I have a girlfriend at college and my parents don't approve of our relationship at all. Last few weeks they've been furious about it, and threatening to divorce. They told me not to date until I get my bachelor's, which is at least 1 semester from now, and to date only Asian, preferably Chinese American, girls. I'm Asian, and she's white. We didn't even do anything inappropriate. We're just close friends, often hang out together on campus. And we're in a swing dance club. I didn't even tell my parents about my relationship. How did they find out? My sister, 18 female, also goes to same college as me, and she always saw me walking around holding hands and eating in the cafeteria with the same girl. Instead of asking me about it, she told my parents. She took pictures of us from afar and used it as evidence against me. When I told my parents that both my girlfriend and I are legal adults, and that her parents approve of the relationship, they said, "You'll always be a child in our eyes, and her parents don't influence us." They're primarily mad because I kept my relationship a secret for so long, and secondary reason is that I'm breaking their expectations about dating. My grades are fine. I have a 3.8 GPA and got a summer internship, and I've never gotten in trouble at school. What's worse is that my sister was allowed to date as early as her freshman year in high school. She's even invited her boyfriends home and slept in the same bed as them, and went on vacations with their families. She's had like 3 boyfriends already, as she gets into dating drama frequently. When I, 3 years older than her, asked my parents if I could date, they said no, because they don't want me getting in trouble. She did mediocre in high school and barely squeaked out a 3.0 her first semester in college. When I told my parents that I love my girlfriend and I'm not breaking up with her, they said that they will divorce each other if I don't break up with her ASAP. They were forcing me to pull out my phone and text her, saying that I want to break up. I refused, arguing that they let my irresponsible, academically struggling younger sister date, but not me. My parents said that I value white trash over family, and that they spent 21 years raising a failure. I'm not a failure, my sister is. My dad hit me several times, giving me a black eye, while my mom lied on the floor crying, saying that she wishes she aborted me. Then he argued with my mom and screamed at each other. Meanwhile, I grabbed my backpack with my stuff in it and drove off to my girlfriend's house about 90 minutes away. My parents fortunately don't know where she lives. When he noticed my car was missing, he called me but I didn't pick up. Then he texted me asking where I am and said that he would come get me. I told my girlfriend's family what happened, and they offered to let me stay with them until we go back to campus. My mom later texted me to inform me that my parents have filed a missing person report against me. I texted back, saying that I'm at my girlfriend's place, and that they can't stop me. I got my girlfriend's dad to call my parents, and he told them to F off, and that if they keep treating me like this they will take legal action themselves. I know it's only because she and I are very committed in our relationship, and her parents are supportive of it.
My fiancé is convinced I have a crush on my friend's husband. My best friend Sarah, 26 female, and her husband Matt, 28 male, have put me in a very difficult position with my fiancé Jack, 30 male. I knew Matt since my childhood. He was my neighbor and we were friendly. Sarah and I were roommates in college and became close friends. When I introduced Sarah and Matt, they hit it off and started dating each other. I was happy to see 2 of my friends get together but also annoyed that I became the third wheel and was often ignored or set aside because they were so into each other. By the time I graduated, Matt had completely dropped me as a friend. That saddened me, but I was still good friends with Sarah, so it was what it was. Sarah and I would frequently hang out, but I never talked with Matt other than the occasional polite hellos. Sarah would sometimes try to do couples dates with her and Matt and me in my dates. I found that Matt had developed an unpleasant personality and would frequently be rude and condescending towards me. However, he's a very devoted and loving husband to Sarah, so for her sake I ignored him. When my fiancé and I got engaged, we had no plans to do a party. Sarah was disappointed that we didn't throw an engagement party, so she organized a small get-together at her home to celebrate us. The party was nice, and as things were winding down, my fiancé and I went to thank Sarah and Matt for their sweet gesture before we took our leave. Matt was pretty tipsy by then, and out of nowhere he suddenly hugged me and in front of my fiancé said that he was so glad that I was finally settling down and he is relieved that now I'll be over the crush I had on him. I was shocked and told him that wasn't true. He just laughed and told Jack that I was always chasing him and he had to work hard to keep me away. I dragged Sarah in and asked her to please fix this mess, and she was all like, "Oh, he's drunk, ignore him," and says, "You know I always trust you. I know you wouldn't act on your crush." Jack was pretty pissed by this point and he walked out. I ran after him and tried explaining that this isn't true, but he told me he doesn't want to be anyone's second choice or their backup plan. Since that night he isn't talking to me or returning my calls. I have talked to Sarah multiple times to clear things with Jack, but she's brushing me off. I don't understand why they believe this or why she'd stay friends with me if she thought I was into her husband. I was in her wedding party and did all the work because her sister, who was the maid of honor, was too busy. I have helped her through her pregnancy and have babysat her kids so many times. She never gave me any indication she thought this, and why would she want me close to her family if she believed this? I feel humiliated that these people think I was pining away for a jerk like Matt. I need help in convincing Jack this isn't true. I'm also mad at him for throwing away our relationship over what some drunken idiot said. I don't know what I am going to do about my friendship with Sarah.
For the first time, my adopted daughter truly felt comfortable with me. Quick summary: me and my wife of 4 years wanted to start a family, but she cannot have kids of her own. So after getting in touch with our local adoption agency, and with them living with us for a few months with us as the foster parents, we officially became the parents of two beautiful girls named Amelia, 7, and Judy, 11. They had been under the care of an actually very sweet and loving older couple who were their foster parents. But obviously with them getting up there in age, it was getting harder for them to take care of the girls. So that's when we stepped in. Now when I say she was standoffish, I'm referring to Amelia. She wasn't necessarily scared of me or my wife or anything like that. In fact, she was quite comfortable and adjusted very quickly to living with us. She just saw me as a bit intimidating because I'm rather tall, 6'5", and have lots of tattoos. I think she thinks I'm like a biker or gangster or something lol. And anytime I'd ask her something like how school was, it was usually just one-word answers. But whenever my wife would ask, it'd be hard to get her to stop talking. This happened when we were the foster parents as well. So the incident in question happened earlier this afternoon. My wife had taken Judy to the mall to get some more stuff for school, and I watched Amelia. We had breakfast together and she politely asked if she could go out in the backyard to play. I was doing some work on my laptop in the kitchen and I hear my neighbor's dog, a German Shepherd, barking and don't think much of it. But then a few seconds later I hear her yell daddy for the first time ever. I jog outside and see her standing there on the verge of tears as my neighbor's dog on the other side of the chain link fence is sitting there looking concerned. I go over and kneel down next to her asking what's wrong sweetie? Did he scare you? And all she does is nod and wrap her arms around me trying not to cry. I smile and tell her it's okay sweetie, he's not gonna hurt you, and I pick her up and she's holding on to me with all her strength. I immediately figure out what happened and know the dog isn't a threat because he is the biggest goofball you can imagine. There was a ball next to the fence that Amelia and her sister must have played with and the dog saw her and made the connection in his head that she wanted to play catch and was trying to get her attention to play. I know this because he's done the same thing when I cut the grass or do yard work and just wants someone to play with. He's honestly the cutest thing. She calms down enough and, while she's still holding on to me, I get the dog to stand up and hold my hand out for him to sniff and lick my hand and say see? He's not mean at all and I pet him all over his head and he melts in happiness. I then ask her if she wants to try and she doesn't say anything except slowly reaches her hand forward and lets him smell her and she laughs as he licks her hand and she giggles, and I kiss her on the cheek for good cuteness sake. I even let her throw the ball and he quickly brings it back and dumps it in her hand and she's laughably grossed out and completely forgets why she was scared in the first place. Eventually we both head back inside and I make her lunch and it's like an immediate transformation of how she is with me. I just talk about the work I was doing and she's asking me loads of questions like she does my wife and it really just feels awesome. Just wanted to share this story and hope it made some of you smile. I've just told my wife who scares me I want a divorce. I'm not sure how I let it get this bad. I just told my wife this week that I want a divorce and I am buzzing with pride and happiness. We've been together 12 years and have 2 small boys. When we met, all went well, we had jobs in the same industry, we traveled a lot. But very quickly, it became clear that my wife doesn't have any tolerance or even understanding for things that are not done the way she would do them. She idealizes her childhood and is very close to her mother and sister. Admittedly, she grew up in a very close large family and had a pretty great childhood. But as an adult, this has morphed into a fanaticism with things being done normally. To her, normally means the way she would do them or how her mother did them. Ironically, her mom is super chill and not at all like that. Over the years, this annoyed me but it became way worse once our children were born. Everything had to be as she wanted in the house. I couldn't choose how to dress the kids because I didn't pick the right blend of colors. If I put on a diaper, it was redone. If I packed lunch and snacks for school, she would change the snacks to the ones she wanted. That was still the short end of the wedge. The major issue is I wake up early in the morning, 5:30 a.m., I always have and I love it. I also do fine at night on little sleep whereas my wife is a demon if she doesn't get 8 hours. That means that I take care of 99% of kids waking up at night. I do 99% of morning prep, lunch boxes, breakfast, getting dressed for which she chose the clothes the night before. I always take the kids to school. Another reason I do this early is that, if I do it when she's awake, I get criticized for using the wrong spoon to serve the food, or using the wrong milk for oatmeal, or not cleaning up every tiny spill the second it happens, or using the wrong dish rag, etc. Every criticism is exasperated and aggressive. She's right on some of them but it's a constant barrage. I tune her out. I've even been told going to the bathroom is a problem because they feel me being awake. The issue is that our oldest loves to wake up early to be with me. It's a really cool time for us. We have breakfast, we watch the news, we talk about nerdy stuff. But she won't have it. She insists he has to stay in bed until 6:30. I wouldn't mind but it's torture for the kid. He hates it, he cries and moans and whines and just wants to be up and about. I am exactly the same. Now that our second is doing the same, she has begun blowing up at me aggressively. The other day, she woke up at 6 and accused me of just putting them in front of the TV in the morning and that our eldest is short because he doesn't sleep enough. They get 1 hour of TV during holidays and I come up with the vast majority of outing ideas. He's quite short for his age group but nothing out of the ordinary. And I finally snapped. As I was getting yelled at again, in front of both my kids, I just said enough. I calmly said I wanted a divorce and that she would never speak to me like that again. We are away from home until next week but I already contacted a lawyer. I am so happy. It will suck in the short term and then be such a relief. I can't wait to have my own place and the kids on my own half the time.
My husband hooked up with my best friend and his girl best friend. I got so angry I hooked up with his boss and now I regret it. My brother had to have surgery and I wanted to be there for him, so I ended up staying about 2 weeks. I always knew my best friend had a thing for my husband, she's admitted it multiple times, but I would just laugh it off because surely my married best friend won't screw my husband, right? I didn't even catch them. My husband's girl best friend is just that insane that she casually admitted it to me as I was cleaning the kitchen when I got back. I thought she was kidding. No, she wasn't. I asked my best friend if this was true over a phone call and she at first denied it, then broke down sobbing and freaking admitted to it. I was so angry I threw all of my husband's crap into a big suitcase and tossed it on the front lawn. I locked the doors and piled a bunch of crap in front of it like the couch and end table, etc. so the dummy couldn't get in. Of course, when he got home from work and couldn't get in, he started panicking. He banged on the door and shouted for me to let him in. I just stayed upstairs with our dog and let him tire himself out. Eventually he left, and from what I know, he stayed the night at his girl best friend's crappy apartment. They probably screwed, all while he was crying over me. I hate him. After a few weeks of him blowing up my phone and pleading with me, I finally let him come home and we talked. He was sobbing and apologizing to me, said he was a lovemaking addict and that he needed help. I told him I want him to go to therapy as well as us going to couples counseling. He agreed to it without any fight. He slept on the couch while I slept in our bedroom. My best friend hadn't even made any moves to contact me or apologize for being the homewrecker she is. My husband ended up having some sort of work dinner party a week or so later that he needed to attend and invited me. This was the first time he's ever invited me to anything like this. Pretty sure it's because none of his female co-workers don't know he's married, or I'm assuming that's the case because of how shocked they seem to meet me. At the dinner, his boss, 50s male, was chatting with me, newly divorced, and I asked him how that was, made sure to ask loud enough for husband to hear me. We ended up chatting all night and my husband ended up scurrying off from the dinner table and told me he was gonna go home and told me to get an Uber home, clearly pissed off at me. Needless to say, his boss was shocked at how he treated me and I couldn't help but play up the sad lonely wife bit. It ultimately ended up in us going back to his house and hooking up. When I woke up that morning I did end up Ubering home. Since then, his boss has sent flowers to our home, called me a few times, and my husband is completely aware of this, and now the regret is starting to sink in. The guilt and worry has started to eat away at me. The revenge felt nice, but now it's clear it's eating at the both of us. I'm gonna find a lawyer and start the process soon. I just needed to tell all this to someone that is in my family because they don't even know the first detail about this.